Thank you so much, everybody, for coming to attend this event, a special event for us, where we celebrate with students their successes, having obtained various qualifications from UCT and from this faculty in particular. Today, we're celebrating 3 LB students. Most of them graduated the last graduation, but we have 3 graduating today, 1 postgraduate diploma, 59 LLMs, 10 MPhils, and 9 PhDs. And included in this, people associated with the faculty in various capacities, including Bongiwe Zungu, who is a lecturer and is graduating with an LLM with distinction. I don't know whether Bongiwe is here. We also have Simon Thompson, who is a teaching assistant, graduating with distinction as well. And Aisha Adam, she's also graduating with a PhD. She's been a teaching assistant in the commercial law department. There are 2 other graduates here who are affiliated with the faculty, especially in the Center for Comparative Law in Africa, Tebo Holefifi and Yakubu Nagu, both of whom are graduating with PhD. I would like to acknowledge parents, relatives of the people who are graduating today. We appreciate the work that you've done supporting all of the people who are graduating today. There's a lot that you have put up with over the years, and it's not easy, especially for parents, to educate a child, to get someone from creche. For those that went to, we're lucky to go to creche, to go to primary school, secondary school, and to pursue higher degrees. So we appreciate the work that you have done and the support you provided to them. Also, I would like to recognize the supervisors, the lecturers who have worked very hard. At some point, it might have seemed to have been a war or a struggle between the supervisor and supervisee, thinking that this person maybe doesn't want me to get the PhD. and I think that is the role that supervisors play. We are here to play around with ideas, test new ideas, and you can only have that if you have robust discussion with someone experienced in their field, who know what research is all about and is trying to get the thesis to make sense, to be substantiated properly, and that can take a lot of to and fro, and at times even breakdowns of relations between students and supervisors. On this list, I will not mention them away some conflicts. It just shows the amount of work that goes into it. We appreciate the supervisors, and in particular, today in this faculty, we have a tradition of celebrating PhD students specifically because it's a special field of study. It is a lonely study. Most people find it difficult. I found it difficult. I haven't seen anyone who has found it easy so far. And each study is unique. Each person is unique. They come with different backgrounds, experiences, and each student goes through their own journey, very different from the last. And so we take this opportunity to recognize each one of them by allowing the supervisor to come up here and say a few words about the candidates. We make provision for 3, a maximum of 5 minutes. One in the emeritus professors to keep to the word. Before I go to each and every candidate to come here, I would like to thank KB for organizing this event with the support of Faiza, who is somewhere here, and also folks from the faculty office, especially Patricia Phillips, who is like the mother of all PhD students here. Needed to appreciate the work that she does with the support of others in the faculty office, especially Claire and Norway and others. I'll start with Um, Aisha, Adam, so you come here, and Debbie, please.
I hope I can keep this for 3 minutes. That's not quite a merit, yes, but I can get a bit wordy. So Aisha, I'll tell you a little bit about Aisha's topic because it's relevant, obviously, for my experience of Aisha. So Aisha's thesis is on appearance autonomy. In other words, the freedom to be how you want to appear in the world and how appearance autonomy is relevant for your own expression, your own dignity, and how your appearance is a part of your identity, and how adverse decisions are taken against people on the basis of their appearance in the workplace. And so Aisha starts off in her proposal all about first impressions and how first impressions matter. So I'll tell you about my first impression of Aisha. Aisha's very young. Looked at her CV and I thought, you want to do your PhD. The other impression from Aisha's CV at the time was, you have an LLB from the UK, University. You come from Botswana. You have an LLM in commercial law. You want to do your PhD in workplace discrimination and equality law. So my first impression was one of skepticism. Aisha was very lucky. We had a co-supervisor, Emma Fergus, who had supervised Aisha's LLM dissertation. Convinced me that Aisha was definitely the candidate we should be taken on. Aisha was not to be deterred at all. So she's a very determined individual. She's comes with that is her commitment, her hard work and discipline, and her resoluteness in her topic. She's independent. She's much more organized than I am. So a lot of her characteristics I really did envy. Aisha always shows up. Whatever feedback she got, she took it. She made great use of it. She showed up in her work. Aisha worked in our research unit for a while. She worked in my department for a good couple of years, still is, and she never came up with excuses. She would have medical emergencies that we wouldn't even know about. She would put aside whatever needed to be put aside, and she always showed up. And that showed up in your PhD as well. So she did a phenomenal job sticking to her time limits and the path that she had set for herself. There really was no stopping her. The dean mentioned that pursuing a PhD is not an easy task. It's a lonely road. It's not for the faint-hearted. And it's not for the supervisor, can't be faint-hearted either. So we managed all of those interactions, I think, really, very well. Aisha cleared all hurdles. She passed her PhD with flying colors. She handled actually with remarkable ease, at least that's what I could see. I can see the struggle, I can see that, but I know that it was probably there and there was stuff that was hidden from you. Aisha's manner of working not only shows resilience and aptitude for the work that she was doing, she also has a quality of humaneness. And I just want to, before I wish Aisha well on her next chapter, I want to set up what her next chapter is going to be about, because Aisha has unusual characteristics that are not common in the legal profession, and I think that this really stands her in good stead for her next chapter. So Aisha, as I mentioned, always showed up. Her and I applied for a Fulbright scholar to come out. This is the job offer that you have forgotten about.
Oh, yeah.
Aisha would always, Aisha, we need another bum on the seat in this classroom. Please come. Aisha does a role play for us, and she gets offered a job, an internship in New York. It's a workplace investigation. So Aisha's at a point now where she has finished her PhD, and she's ready for her next chapter. Her next chapter reads like one of those children have those novels, those quest novels, where you're standing at the end of a chapter, and you're about to slay the dragon. Do you pick up the sword and slay the dragon? If so, turn to chapter 15. Do you pick up the oar and row away on the boat, away from the dragon? Go to chapter 16. Do you run away and hide in the cave? Go to chapter 17. And that's where Aisha has. She really has. That's where she is. And she has options. She has, on I think she's really been recognized for her hard work, for her commitment, and for the thesis that she has produced. She has 3 job offers. I just reminded of the third. Yes, forgotten about it. On 3 different continents. And so for me, it's been an absolute privilege and an honor to be a part of this chapter. And I just can't wait to see whether you go chapter 15, 16, or 17. But thank you so much. It's been really an honor.
Thank you, David. The second is Carolina Harps, supervised by Professor Lianto. You're going to speak, and Tobias Jonathan.
Thank you, David.
Yes,
Yes. So, thank you, Dean. No, I'm fine. I'm doing just. So I, along with my colleague Tobias Schonwetter, had the privilege of supervising Carolina. Just before I continue, let me say that I'm going to do this German style in 3 minutes. So her research is located at the intersection of traditional knowledge and specifically traditional cultural expressions and intellectual property. And a key point of contention in the international intellectual property space, and specifically at the World Intellectual Property Organization, has been the legal protection of traditional cultural expressions. And so there have been negotiations at international level at the Intergovernmental Committee on Traditional Knowledge, Genetic Resources and Folklore. They've been talking for years and years, for decades, about trying to find some solution. So they produced lots of documentation, but no solution. And that's where Carolina comes in. So she decided that she was going to solve the problem. Initially, I just rolled my eyes. Anyway, her main focus has been to decide to come up with a solution whereby all the parties would reach some form of consensus, because that's what's been holding up the development of a new instrument. And so she has, through a very, very, very meticulous study of domestic laws, draft international laws, multilateral dispute resolution methods, she's developed a set of criteria and a lowest common denominator that would lead to a new international legal instrument with enough common ground for parties to finally reach consensus. So they'll stop talking and actually start doing something. It hasn't been a straightforward task, along with personal challenges along the way. Carolina was also faced with the COVID-19 pandemic, like the rest of us. The problem for her was that part of her research was to travel to Geneva and observe the negotiations. So the negotiations stalled, and in addition, obviously, travel was a problem, which meant that ideally, at least I don't know about Tobias, but in my head, my thought was, perhaps you can just make this smaller and easier. But no, she stuck to her guns. It is nothing if not determined, because she had a vision for what this thesis should contribute. It was never just about an academic piece. It was always about, from the start, doing something relevant and something that would actually have application. And so she had this vision for what the thesis needed to contribute. And then at some point, she also had a deadline. And nothing was going to stop her, not even her supervisors. Some generally think, oh, it's a little tight and about to be sitting, yes, and office like, but she, in the end, she met all the deadlines, and she also produced a thesis that she can be justifiably proud of. And I think we as supervisors are also very proud, and we bask in the reflected glory of your success. So, Carolina, congratulations on a hard-earned and absolutely well-deserved PhD.
Michaela, next. Tobias, you're supposed to already.
I do. So we I'm not shouting at you here in the front, but I was standing all the way in the back, and it's really hard to listen and hear what people are saying. So I'm trying to talk a little bit louder for now. So good afternoon, everyone. I have the pleasure to introduce to you yet another IP PhD graduate, number 2 of 3 this time around, of which we are very, very proud. It's also the first time in a year that I'm actually back in the faculty, so I'm actually quite excited about being back here. So it looks good. I can present to you Linikila Ihua, and when I wrote this earlier, I was realizing that this is actually the first time that I'm actually saying this, because of the many things that change over a period of several years when you write your PhD thesis, sometimes also family matters change, so your surname changed from one to the other. So this is your new surname, and congratulations for that as well, I suppose. Linikela is from Namibia, and she is employed by the University of Namibia as a senior lecturer. I guess with the PhD now, that might also change soon, hopefully, then let's see how that goes. And the PhD thesis that she has written is really about a topic that I think many of us in the room might find quite interesting. It's about geographical indications. Now, you may not know what that is, but it's that form of intellectual property protection that allows producers from a certain region, and only the producers from that region, to call their products by a certain name. So think, it's not there on the table, but it looks like it. Think champagne, or think Parma ham, or Greek yogurt. These kind of things are closer to home in South Africa, rooibos tea, or now also very recently Karoo lamb. These are geographical indications that are protected. And Linikela's thesis really, in a nutshell, examines how these geographical indications are being protected in Namibia in the first place. So it's an analysis of the current status quo. And then she also looked at a variety of other countries around the world, including South Africa, and just compared of how these geographical indications are protected there, and whether anything can be learned from these other countries in terms of the protection in Namibia. And what I really particularly liked about her research focus is that she really used the research focus lens of development and all that. And she was really approaching that issue with the question, how can the protection of geographical indications potentially help Namibia as a country to achieve its developmental objectives? And I think she did very well, and I encourage you to read her conclusions. What I also liked is that when we met several years ago, I had the feeling that she was picking up on something that we, with our research projects, had also already discovered, that this is one of the areas of intellectual property that need more attention. And what we basically wrote in one of our books is, people need to do more research on this. They need to look into more into this. And guess what? Someone saw that, read it, came to us and said, this is what I want to do. I want to deepen this. So thanks for also responding to that call to new and emerging researchers to do that. Now, coming to an end, Linikela's PhD journey, like so many other journeys, PhD journeys, my own included, are never smooth sailing, right? There's lows, there's highs, and sometimes one gets frustrated, and sometimes one can really see the light at the end of the tunnel. But we had highs and lows together in our relationships also, because sometimes she wanted more from me and sometimes I wanted more from her, like the typical stuff that happens. But it is because actually just that tenacity that you showed in that whole enterprise over the years that made me so impressed and proud of what you have achieved. In my books, this really makes you a role model for many PhD students, current and future PhD students, because many PhD students are facing similar challenges. And Linikela, it was really a privilege to have you as a PhD student, and I thank you for choosing me, and congratulations.
Next is Julian Paul Kissinger, doctor, already has a PhD. Yes. It is true. Okay, so you can come here. I'm not the supervisor, but I'll say a few things on you, all of which are uninformed, because I don't know you. I haven't met you, but this is the first time I'm meeting him. The supervisor was Associate Professor Kathy Idenson, she's on leave, so she sent her apologies at the moment, but she couldn't come here. But somehow I had to read his thesis because until now I've been chairing the high degrees committee, and so the first supervisor at that time decided to send over and have the candidate helped by other people. So I had to look for people with expertise in this field. Before I could do so, I had to read it. And the topic is protecting South African companies against cybercrime, a critical analysis of the director's duty of care in relation to cyber security and the use of artificial intelligence to protect companies' online media. So none of these things that I'm talking about, cybercrime, director's duty of care, cyber security, use of artificial intelligence, I know nothing about, including company law. I had to read the thesis in order to get a sense of what needed to be done. And fortunately, colleagues, Dr. Tsebelo, Tabane, and Dr. Elina Stokes came in to provide expert advice within a short period of time. I think it was a month or so. And you were so welcoming of their assistance and help. And it is with their help that you managed to respond to the comments that you received from the examiners and satisfy them that you had written a thesis of quality that was worth the award of the doctoral degree. Now, this is the second PhD that this man has completed. So, the 8 of you, you can come back next year. I know only one other person, a South African, who completed 3 doctoral theses in law. You see CMR Lamini. I mean, he's no longer with us, but he did. And you are on 2, maybe you start another one soon. But you've shown that there is no end to studying. You needed to face this challenge once more, and you have managed to complete it. So you're an inspiration. Congratulations. Thank you so much. The next is the table for the FIFI. Please come here. And Professor Kalula, Emeritus, please. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Dean. The last time I spoke in July, I think I was out of that. I used my position as a trainer to talk too much. I'm not sure if you too much, except to say that this year, for Professor Ada, is she here? Yeah, sir. And it has been a very good year. There are 3. These 2 they add to the first one we have in July. And let me start by acknowledging and thanking Professor Odom for being not only co-supervisor, but the godmother as well, both Tebuo and Raisa. Tebuo's thesis has got something in common with the Professor Odom's. By the way, let me name drop and supervise. Yes, sir. Okay. And it was an amazing. A PhD is supposed to be, in the original sense, an original contribution to knowledge. And the Ada's thesis was that she tackled an area that was not known, non-profit, sort of organizations. And there was no literature I could think of. And she came out. She stands among my PhDs as one of those really remarkable PhDs. So it was a pleasure to have her. And Tebuo's thesis is similar to that. Tebuo has got a checkered history. In some ways, very similar to mine, but not too different. She spent a lot of time in China, got a master's in Taiwan, and then tackled this area of non-existent, basically looking at China and the relationship with Africa. And then talking of that, The two, I would digress a bit. The two, her and Raisa, who is coming next, I think were influenced and duly, in a way, without them knowing, by Professor Ishmael. This is his forte in terms of international trade and regional integration. So Tebu's thesis, I will not go into the detail, but I, first of all, you have it in terms of the, what is that, the
booklet.
the booklet,
Graduation.
but it's the thesis. Well, this is the thesis that you need to read because they represent original contribution to knowledge. They are breaking the sort of new boundaries in terms of BRICS and China. Besides writing this thesis, Tebu, in fact, has been instrumental under the encouragement of Professor Odo in introducing Chinese in the family. And it's wonderful. That's all I can say. This is a pleasure. And also let me acknowledge how, and I'm not going to go on. Don't worry. I have my senior moments. I want to acknowledge, I think, your former successor here is here because he and I, but where is he? Professor Koda, has he gone? Yeah, was around. He and I co-supervised my first PhD, 1993. Since then, I think there have been quite a few. Depending on how you count here and elsewhere, about 50 kind of, sort of co-supervisor. And that was, for me, a learning experience. And I had learned from that experience that when you are co-supervising, and I mentioned this before, Dean, I was badly supervised, the person who knows more than anything else, who should know more than anything else, not the supervisor. Otherwise, it's not going to be an original contribution. And Hugh and I learned about that. So Tebuo is remarkable. I mean, this is remarkable. Talk of imagination. A PhD must be imaginative, and Tebuo was one was. And let me just thank you and the faculty again and Ada for being there for them. And I hope we'll do a few more before I really retire. In terms of what, and that for me is a labor blow. And it's really a pleasure to work with the. This is the beginning. Your world is what's the expression? Your whole stuff. Yeah, you have got places to go. Don't the forest pass by deep and wide. It's not time to sleep. Yeah. Thank you, Dean. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Kalunga. Next is Andrew May, supervised by Emeritus Professor Elrina Pandit-Pan. Please come. Which way? Which way it is?
This was a journey that took 10 years.
3 minutes.
We read the acknowledgement page this morning in Andrew's thesis, and in that he says, to register for a PhD as a part-time student is a dangerous thing. I know all about those dangers. 3 jobs, 3 kids, and 3 moves from one house to another, and panel beating, a remarkable piece of work during all of that. So, Professor Sherwa, you've got another thesis to read. You're going to be busy over Christmas. I'll tell you a little bit about the thesis. It is a thesis which examines the effects of imprisonment. Yes, that's true. And the carceral trauma that inmates are exposed to. It goes on to consider the challenges that inmates confront when they leave the prison as total institution behind. But it goes on to assess the innovative contribution of halfway houses, small experiments of halfway houses as a kind of residential institution that can allow for some measure of prison reintegration into society. So, Andrew, in the end, this is a deeply politically relevant topic. There's a lot of talk and political appetite, really, for incarceration. There's a lot of superficial talk, too, about rehabilitation. And what you do in this dissertation is to acknowledge trauma at two levels: existing inside the prison walls and then stepping outside of those walls. So a topic of social and political relevance, a topic of deep intellectual relevance, a topic that is methodologically quite tricky because Andrew is no outsider to the business of imprisonment. He has worked for the last 15, 20 years in prisons, trying to kind of practice the virtues of restorative justice. So he's not an outsider, he's an insider. And I think this thesis was methodologically challenging because you have to kind of balance the insider status with an outsider kind of critical appraisal of things. It is a thesis that has deep moral relevance. And I want to thank you, Andrew, for sharing the kind of moral imperatives of this kind of intellectual inquiry. But it is also a thesis that is not only about theory. It is a thesis that feeds into an applied understanding of what it is that we should be doing differently. Then I'll stop by saying, as a piece of literary work, this thesis is seductive. So if you don't want to read it for its political relevance, its moral imperative, and the trickiness of methodology, you should read it as literary work. 10 months ago, we gave Andrew an opportunity before a very supportive group of postgraduate students and staff in the Center of Criminology to present the thesis. And that morning we walked away from a 3-hour engagement with Andrew's work. And we were all better people because there was so much engagement in that room. There was so much goodwill. And I want to thank you, Andrew, for allowing us that opportunity to be our better selves and to recognize a piece of work that deserves to stand in the archives of this university. Thank you. And I just wanted to say, Andrew, before you hug me for the second time today, I wanted to say this is not only a personal achievement, and I know that as a partner, you share the collective victory. But then I want to refer to the two parents that came all the way from the US. And to Mother, earlier this year when Andrew began to think that it was possible that he was going to be dragged over the finishing line, he said to me, really? Do you think it's okay if I tell my mum and dad they have to book the tickets? Yes, so it's what a pleasure to meet you in person, and what a fine specimen on many levels. Thank you.
A special handwriting. Thanks, Dorina. Yakubu Nagu is next, and Professor Ismail is the supervisor. Thank you so much. And also provided by Professor Adawado. You want to come over?
Yeah. So, well, thank you so much. Well, first, thank you very much, Dean, for the opportunity to really contribute to this faculty and the university. This is the third PhD that I've supervised to completion, and there are a few more in the pipeline. So thank you so much for that. But before I get to Yakubu, I want to first follow on the footsteps of my my elder and say thank you so much to Professor Ada Odo, for really in all three cases, she was the co-supervisor. And in the ones to come too, she's also the co-supervisor. And she really, as you put it, she is the godmother, the one who nurtures, who supports, and who really is the backbone for the process that we are embarking upon here of building the next generation of scholars. So thank you so much, Ada, for your support and your help and for bringing me into this process. It has been a tremendous pleasure. You know, I've heard other supervisors say there are always different moments in a PhD supervisor-supervisee relationship, and those stand out and you reflect on them afterwards. But I must say, in Yakubu's case, I was trying to think about those moments. And I must say, I couldn't actually remember any of them. There's a good reason for that. So I'll start with Yakubu, the person. So the three things that stand out for me when I reflect on, my experience with Yakubu over the last few years. The one is, he always calls me sir. I said, Yakubu, my name is Faisal. You can call me Faisal. He said, oh, sir. The second thing is, whenever we have a supervision, session that comes to the office, even when we did it online during COVID, he said, sir, can I record you? And with a bit of trepidation, I would say, well, okay, as long as I'm not sued after this. But he followed diligently my, supervisory advice, which is quite unusual. So the third thing was, whenever we agreed on a plan of work and a schedule of work, he always delivered on time. So thank you, Yakubu. There were no moments in our relationship. It was a great pleasure working with you. So let me say something about the substance. This is a great PhD. Its title is Implementing the AFCFTA, that's the African Continental Free Trade Area, Policies, Regulations, Laws, and Institutions Required for Development. So it is a great topic, but it's also on the frontier. It's path-breaking work. The area itself is path-breaking because, as you know, the African Continental Free Trade Area is really a path-breaking initiative on the African continent that's, really been in the forefront of the hope for Africa going forward. And I was fortunate when I returned from Geneva after spending too much time there to work closely with the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area. I did a bit of work thinking about how we would implement this. What Yakubu has done in his thesis, he's really taken the substance forward. in his work, he has delved into the theory, the policies, and the implementation of the AFCFTA. And I must say, I was pleasantly surprised with the distance he covered in his theoretical work, exploring the relationship between law and development and taking forward the existing theory, including my own, and creating a new trade and a law and development model, which could now become a framework for analysis for many other students, and certainly analysts who think about the implementation of the AFCFTA. Secondly, on trade policy, we had a few engagements on this because I have worked for over 25 years on trade policy. And of course, I have my own bias. And so we had a lot of engagements on this issue. And Yakubu is a lawyer by training, not an economist. But he had to learn, and he did, learn about trade policy, industrialization, and try to understand the heterodox approaches to trade and economics. He did this remarkably well, and you see the evidence in his thesis. And the third thing he did, which I think is really path-breaking, you know, we try as supervisors to encourage students to write about case studies, and case studies on the African continent are quite extraordinary because there's so few. And Yakubu not only did one, but he did 3 case studies, 3 difficult and challenging explorations of Kenya and Nigeria, where he comes from, but the terrain is not so easy, and Ethiopia, a country that really has not been connected in any way from a trade point of view into the global economy, let alone the region. And Yakubu was able, through his very pleasant manner, to reach out to policymakers, stakeholders, and get an inside view about how they think about and how they would go about implementing the African Continental Free Trade Area. And he's done a remarkable job for policymakers and for academics who want to learn about the African Continental Free Trade Area and how to implement that. So well done and congratulations. Yep. I want to also acknowledge his brother who's come all the way from Lagos. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Professor Ismail. Victor and Zamo is the last for tonight. Caroline. It's my surprise. Sorry.
Okay.
It's that.
We must wait.
Because I already caught.
Oh, okay, come in. Thank you, Dean. I've taken the opportunity to go hide in the corner and stand next to Julian because Julian's first PhD was with me. And so when I saw him today, I was so happy and to see Mom as well. So Julian, happy to see you. But I'm here to talk about data. And yeah, there's so much to say and so little time. So I've been standing at the back in the corner and I now have to raise my voice. I also know though that people standing at the back, they are tired as well. So I'll keep it short, but there is a lot to say. So Victor, I'll be short, but you know, I'm a huge fan. Right. So I want to say something about the topic that Victor wrote about and then something about Victor himself. I'll start with the topic. So you can read the topic in the graduation program, but it is transparent royalties, improving disclosure in collective management of copyright and related rights in Kenya and South Africa. So how to break this down? Everybody's got a favorite artist, I'm sure. There was this one musician that you so loved and you thought they were so cool and they were so good. And then fast forward a few years later, unfortunately life happened and perhaps that musician passed away. And then you heard that they died destitute. And then you were like, but the maths is not It's not nothing. I thought they were successful, but how can they be destitute? Right. And part of the problem is that when it comes to royalty sharing, artists, singers, performers don't always get their rightful share for a number of reasons. And one of those reasons might include the collective management organizations who collect royalties on their behalf and then pass it on to them. Some things go wrong along the line there. And so Victor thought that he would write about this. It's a really topical issue. I think it's something that many of us have thought about. And we always wonder, how come these people are so prominent, so successful? There's a structure to make sure they get the money that's due to them, but they don't get it. What is wrong, right? So this is what Victor was looking at. So he was looking at collective management organizations and how they can be better regulated to make sure that the things that go wrong don't actually go wrong. And then we stop having these stories of beloved artists who seem to be successful, yet destitute, right? So this is what he looked at. He drew from corporate governance and other areas of law and really interesting methodologies. And he had these tables in his thesis. I just looked at them and my brain was fried. And I said, okay, you do it. And this is really nice because one of the things you learn in supervision is that the first year you have the upper hand, you can pretend to know something, but by 12 months, the candidate is the expert and you're just the cheerleader. And so I was very happy after a year to say to him, you go with your tables and do you, because I don't know what's going on. And it went really well. His examiners were impressed. And so he's got the PhD. So much about the topic. I'm sure you'll read the thesis later when it's online. What about Victor, the person? So Victor is, I want to use his name really and speak very quickly for 90 seconds maybe and stop. So Victor has got his LLB and his LLM and of course now his PhD. But one of the things he told me when I first met him was coming back to UCT. And I did a double check and I said, coming back because his LLB is from UNISA. And so he told me that he had started at UCT and for various reasons, he had to go finish at UNISA. Then he did his LLM in Kenya and then came back to do his PhD. But what I soon found out was that for Victor, he wanted to be victorious. He wanted to come back to UCT and get that degree and not get the LLB, but get the highest degree that UCT could offer, right? So really, for me, that was Victor being victorious, like his name. So he came, he saw, and he conquered. And before we go, because we're out of time, I also wanted to pay tribute to Victor's mom, who's here, standing here. And the rest of his family and 2 kiddies are at the back there. So congratulations, family. Thank you.
Someone clap.
By the way, Victor, you get the degree only after 8, not now. So all of you don't have the degree yet. I'm going to end with Professor Kalula, of course, and Raisa Jerome.
This time,
Adam, also, could you please come? Everybody has been serving.
Oh, okay.
Dean, thank you again. Unlike Ambassador Ishmael, old fashioned.
Yeah.
I never encourage my students to call me by my first name. If they feel comfortable, right? But, and that was much more so with Raisa, because Raisa was, it's like a niece. I came to know her parents. She came to me when she was doing a master's. I supervised a master's, and there was something very Malawian. I'm from Zambia, but in some ways, I'm much more Malawian. Yeah. And there's something very Malawian about the accent, and that is a quiet determination and working hard. In the very briefly, I mean, in the 90s, yeah, I had a friend here, Janjana, who in fact, he indirectly led me to Raisa, and whenever we wanted to prevail or have an advantage in the hotels, we'd simply break into jail because there were lots and lots of Malawians. So for me, and I went to school at the Malawian border. So for me, she was like a niece and hardworking. And I only hope that I did not abuse her, because I was abused by one of my survivors by living, sort of doing all manner of work. She did a bit for me, and I was always mindful of that. And she was meticulous about her work. Again, Ambassador Ishmael, it is in your province, your secretary of training. And as you said, as the Professor Caroline said, it will be online and you can read it. But it's interesting because unlike the goals, which looks, outside, this is intra-African, looking at the regional integration and trade. And it's a very exciting, the world to come, so to see. So it was a pleasure, but beyond that, beyond really me paying gratitude to Professor Odo, I would like to acknowledge our parents. Our parents are here. Mr. and Mrs. Nyongo are here. And so are two of our siblings. The older sister is here. Where are you people? And Rachel as well. And Rachel has followed our footsteps. She did an LLM and she's now started off in the field. So these two long-suffering parents, because it's not only these two. Now, got the third one, the older sister is in the UK, in the US. And you can imagine, how hardworking they had to be in order to look after. And I keep hoping, Rachel and Raisa, that it's now time, I think, everything being equal and it's not within your control, to try and look out for mom and dad. They have been wonderful, and I'm delighted that they were able to come from Malawi. And that is not all. Raisa has got his young man here. So as an uncle, I met him yesterday, and I was I do not approve. Unless he hasn't reached a stage where he has approached, you should have approached I guarded myself here as a guardian, and I'm a head of the church. So I hope he recognizes his responsibility. You should look after carefully. But I also want to take this opportunity to say that this is a third. Professor Dar and I have been fortunate. They are all women, by the way, which appeals by woman heart, for the human heart, a woman's heart. And that appeals to me, and I'm mentioning that for the simple reason of doing a commercial. 11 years ago next week, the heart transplant. So I hope for those of you who live in South Africa, you are organ donors. That's why I'm mentioning that. So I think my donor is happy that, I'm putting a heart in this good way. And so, Raisa, it's the beginning. The world is up for your grabs. Whether you decide to remain in academia or go elsewhere, I think the godmother here has helped you, have that foundation. So, Dean, thank you very much.
Yeah, so thank you so much, colleagues, for coming here. Let me thank the supervisors again for the work that you have done. The stories you have shared here, it's clear that you enjoyed working with all the graduates today. Today also is the last day. Our outgoing Deputy Dean for Postgraduate Studies, Professor Johan Hatting, sitting over here. This is last graduation. He's been Deputy Dean for 3 years. We appreciate the work that you have done to get us to this point, and for all these candidates today who are graduating. Thank you so much. Earlier on, I mentioned Patricia. She's been moving up and down, but I saw her get in here. Where is she? Is she around? She's gone away again. We will be moving from here, the graduation hall, very soon. I don't know what the time is now. But 10 to 5, for the graduates, you have to be seated by 5:30. And then we'll see you there at 6 when we start the function. There's still some drinks and eats here. Please, you're welcome. For those traveling, we wish you all the best. Thank you for coming.